Hi, welcome to the Alfred overview session for Sound Innovations. We're so excited you're tuned in listening, and I'm going to go over kind of an overview of a lot of the different books. So I'm Becky Bush, and I have worked on all of the books. I'm a co-author on the sound differentiation book, and was a technical editor on all of the other ones. So I'm also a full-time teacher. So I'm using these books every single day and hope to give you a quick overview. So as you jump in, you've got some great ideas to get you going. So we're going to start with a lot of book one, since that's kind of the foundation for the series, and then I'll explain each individual book as well. So first, to give you that overview, the blue book is called Book One, and that's your standard Book One for your method, and then red is Book Two. The yellow is called Creative Warmups, and a helpful way to think of that is kind of like a 2.5. It has a lot of the things that don't fit in a typical method book series, that you can really dive into, like rhythms and more rhythmic training, things like that. So I'll get more into that. But then if you jump to the green book, that is the intermediate Sound of Innovations intermediate for strings, and it's really a book three, but we have it labeled intermediate so that you can use it flexibly with whatever needs you have for whatever grade level you have. So maybe you have a feeder program that has sent you students who have already worked in a book three, but you really need to hit book three again. It's called intermediate, and there's no issues with what it's labeled. And then the purple book is the advanced. So that's really your advanced high school, book four. So I'll also show you a few of the other books that go along with the series. So the orange one is ensemble development, and that is really for teaching students at the high school level to play in an ensemble. So it's for full orchestra and string orchestra, or it can be just for string orchestra. But it has beautiful chorales, a lot of intonation work, things that you would work on with your students for ensemble playing, provided for you in a full orchestra context. And then the light blue book is sound differentiation, and that is to go with along with a beginner book one. So that is really concert in a box, your beginning concert. It has all the songs that you normally play with beginners. So Hot Cross Buns, Mary Had a Little Lamb, things like that. But it is set up so that every student, every section has multiple parts. So every student has the melody, every student has a variation, a harmony part, and a bass line. So that even your bass players have the melody and variations, and you can arrange that however you want for a concert. And then Sound Leadership is by Scott Lang, and that's a fantastic resource for teaching leadership with your students. Okay, so I'm going to dive into book one, and like I said, I'll spend the most time on this one, since that's kind of the foundation for the series. So this, you'll see right away at the beginning, the new fingerings and new information are always presented right next to the line. So if you're anything like me, we're teaching in the last 5 and 10 years has really changed with students' reading ability and tracking ability. So if those diagrams are right next to the line, they can find it really, really easily. This book is also uses blue and white and gray, and that's actually based on visual research. It's the easiest colors for students to read, and so you're going to notice it's very clear as we go through. All the new concepts are clearly marked and followed, of course, by reinforcement exercises. So these are just a few examples, and we'll see more of those as we go. You're going to notice in the rhythm introduction, it always has just the basic level subdivision, so 1 and 2 and, so that students can see that. And also under the rest, you'll notice in this measure that it has gray, and that's because we want right away to be teaching them that rests are active and they're subdividing during those rests. And then the little blue arrows quickly identify, what the term is that there is talked about in the definition above it. So it's all easy to find for students. There's also goals and assessments, and that's really easy to use even for if you're having students work with STAM partners, or if you're doing an assessment or they're doing their own assessment. It kind of keeps them on track and gives them a sense of accomplishment with what they're working on. All right. In book one, there are fantastic videos that go right along with the book. So you can see the list of artists, nationally known players and teachers present these videos so that you can show them in class. Students can go right online and view them, and it's notated in the book where to find those. And I'll show you an example of that and even let you go on and try it yourself so you can find right where those are at. They're filmed in HD, they're really high level, and they're free right on SI Online, which I'll show you in a minute. All right, we're gonna skip the video just for time's sake. I want to show you this diagram. All the diagrams, especially in book one, where we're really trying to set up that technique, these are line drawn diagrams. So they're not computer generated from scratch. They are actually pictures of pro level players. The violin book is from a Glamian student, and the line drawing is from their position. So it's very specific, but very clear to see. The research is showing us that the pictures are much harder for students to identify, and it's much easier where it's a clear drawing like this, but it's still very accurate because it's a line drawing of a real person holding the bow. All right, so next I want to show you a few more diagrams. You can see again, they're very clear. You can have students go right through that checklist, show their families at home, show their STAM partners, and work with that, and they can actually see it. It's one more strategy to use as you're introducing that posture and position. This again, you can see a little bit larger picture of the introducing the new notes, and the diagram is right next to that line, so it's really, really easy for students to find. And then the at the box at the top gives you, it's always we really try to lay it out in very clear steps so it's easy for students. They're not going to break down and read a whole paragraph. It's just quickly they can find what string it is, and you're going to notice in that box the string that they're playing on is labeled in bold so they can see it and find it quickly as they're learning those new notes. And then there are videos that go right along with it, so you can see those, and you can even put those up while you're tuning students and have them
Notice
follow
that we can
along.
slow.
All right, we're gonna keep moving to a rhythmic example. Again, this has the subdivision and explains your terms, and then another example of an assessment that you might see throughout the book. All right, I want you to notice this diagram. This is a close-up example of what we saw earlier, but you're going to notice in the fingernail is the letter name. So it's kind of a neat little twist on it. You see the picture of the fingers, and it's right in the fingernail, the name of the new note that you're teaching. And then the bow is, that's what we do as string players, right? That's our voice. It's so important. The Sound Innovation series, the reason it is so powerful, it is the most thorough teaching, prescriptive teaching of bow technique and bow division and placement. And you can see, middle, upper, lower, all that stuff throughout the entire series. So I hope to give you a little glimpse of that. And it allows students to practice it as well. So you can see this diagram, it's all based on bowing lanes, and we call those piano, mezzo forte, and forte. Some people like to use numbers, and that's fine. We find that students, especially beginners, have so many numbers for everything, first finger, second finger, that the dynamics just really help them be able to know where they start. If they see a mezzo forte, they know where to put their bow because they're used to calling it that lane. Now, can you adjust it later on? Of course, for artistic decisions. But if I tell my students to play mezzo forte, I want them to go to the middle and not just randomly use the force. Where are they going to put their bow? I want them to know if they see a mezzo forte, they pretty much go to the middle, and then we can make adjustments from there. And then you'll see the piano lane and forte lane, of course, as well. And then sound performance, you're going to notice that this is called level 6. Each segment in the book is called level, and I use that as leveling up. So they're not just halfway through the book in the middle of the year when they kind of get that mid-year slump. They're leveling up each level in the book. So this is level 6. There's quite a few different things for sound performance. There's some short little duets. There's orchestra arrangements, and there's of course a solo as well for each student. So you'll see that in here. And then here's an example of the solo. And the solo, again, has a DVD performance that goes right along with it. And those are high level performances. We have them there. We ask the artist level players to use vibrato, play it like they would, so that students can really get that tonal concept in their ear, especially on instruments that, if I'm a violist and I want my cello and bass players to hear that really authentic, really good tone. So that's a nice free resource that's very accessible, and I'll show you how to get into that in a minute. All right, this is another example in the DVDs that are, or it's on DVD if you order a score, but it's free right online. Each artist that's involved in Sound Innovations shares their musical journey. His story is incredible of kind of where he came from and how he's landed in music. So those are really inspiring for students and right there for them to watch or for you to show in class. And the fingering chart, you'll notice what makes this a little unique is that it shows the rest of the instrument. And that's really important for students because we understand a fingering chart if we're looking at that. But if a student is looking at that, they need to see that frame of reference on where their hand goes. And again, it's just very, very clearly laid out. Okay, and then here are some examples of the recorded accompaniments. There's an accompaniment with every single book, and it is instrument specific. So if a student uses their code, signs online, they can click violin, and they're going to hear every single example with a real violinist playing it with the accompaniment. And every accompaniment is different. There's a lot of variety. The variety is great. It's every recording is not a 70s lounge music. There's a lot of interesting background parts that go with all of those to keep their interested. You can also slow down or speed up every single track so students can practice much more easily with that. You can also turn the melody on and off. The full ensemble pieces are recorded, and it's really easy for students to play along with and navigate. Okay, this is one of the solos, and it has accompaniment with it. So
March.
all provided in there. And then you're going to notice that these are right free online. So you can have it on your phone, and I'll show you how to do that as well. And just run it right from class. You can run it from your computer. You can have students have it on their devices and learn to play with that when they're playing at home.
March.
All right. In addition, there's a whole performance series that goes along with the entire Sound Innovations method. So you can see a few of the composers are listed there. And all of those pieces, it's kind of like your Bellwin series, your Highland Etling. There's Sound Innovations series that are leveled with the book. So if you're on page 20 of book 1, there's some pieces that you'll be able to access that go along with that. And then there's some more composers, and they each have an ed pack with it that takes you through the terms, the form, all of that stuff. So you have ready to go plans as you're teaching those pieces, or sub plans, all kinds of things you could do with that. All right, and then the teacher score. This is one of my favorite things. The teacher score is set up so it is very easy to read. Imagine that, right? Now we're string players, so we have the advantage. We only have 4 instruments, but it is really, really helpful that there's not long text with the teacher's score. We assume you know how to teach. You've already taken the class for that. We just want to provide that easy to read score and an image of what the student book looks like so you can see what they're seeing as you're teaching. So it's very compact. And then in the score, it shows you there's a DVD marking every time there's a DVD. So you don't have to think, wait, where does this one go? Where does this fit best? It's just right in your book, in your score for you.
Gavat.
And those DVDs are really helpful. Like if you're tuning, I mean, I teach middle school, and I have 60 kids in the room at once. So while we're tuning, there's lots of ways you can use that. Okay, so let's dive into the online the resources. So I'll show you how that works, and it's very easy, very user friendly for teachers and students. You can also access all of your extra resources that are free with your book one. So if you log into SI Online, there you can literally change the pace of your book from those resources. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. You can print enrichment pages as needed. You can print them all off at once and make a classroom set. So it's all flexible for what you need. There's extra songs. There's theory, history. The extra tunes are matched with a song in the book. So it's great for differentiation. If you're teaching and you've still got half the class trying to learn one song, you can hand out some of those enrichment pages for the high flyers and say, hey, learn this. And there's no new skills. They know what they need to do to work through that. Okay, so you're gonna go on to sionline.alfred.com and you just type in the product number from the back of the book. So it's 5 digits, just type it in. And once you do that once, your browser will remember it and it just pulls it up every single time. And you can do it on multiple devices, so they could use it on a phone and a Chromebook and wherever they need to. If for the teachers, if you put in the score number, that will give you access to every single instrument recording. So you'll have the violin, viola, cello, bass. So that's nice to have that all right at your fingertips. Okay, you're going to see on this screen, it's a view of what you're going to see online, and you're going to see the audio, the video, and the PDFs, and those are all of your different resources that are all there throughout every exercise. So that's where you can access it. That's probably the number one question we get. Where are those DVDs? They're right there just under video if you just look at that top bar right across. Okay, so I'll show you. This is if you want to take a little picture or screenshot this screen, I'll let you go ahead and try it. You just type in that score and go to the website, type in the score 5-digit number 36604, and then you can enter that. So I'll leave that up just for a second so you can try it out and make sure you have that information to go online. There's also a really handy, if you teach with your phone for tuning and accompaniments, you can make a shortcut right on your phone so that you can access it really, really easily. And these are instructions on how to do that. So again, I'll leave that up there for a second if you want to take a picture or screenshot it. You can also just Google how do I make a shortcut for a website. It's you just put it on your homepage, but that's helpful for teaching. You don't want to have to be typing in websites. You just want to be able to click and go so that you can get right to it. All right. So this is another example of what you might see. If you look at level 1, innovative technique and rhythms, that is an example of more resources. So if we make a book one for what's going to work for most people across the country, but we all teach in really different situations. So if you're teaching 4th graders 1 day a week, your pacing is going to look really different than my 6th graders who I see 5 days a week. So you need to adapt this to make it work for you. And that's what we all do as teachers with any book, but this is all provided for you. Teachers, you have a lot on your plates. We don't have time to be developing all these additional resources. So these are provided for you. They're linked right with the book. So if you're like, okay, we've made it through page, 8, but we really need more time to master that, that's where you're just going to have these printed out and have them ready to go. And there's accompaniments with everything that is online as well. And you can see another example of the DVDs. So just to kind of summarize, you can just print these out. And if you use your score, you can go print out like all 78 pages all at once. Try to make it very easy for you and accessible. And this is a great way to provide differentiated instruction and additional repertoire. You're going to find a lot of other types of examples of music. So if you teach in an area that has a lot of type of one student, this might be really, really helpful to make sure they're seeing representation in their songs. And then there's everything in the enrichment pages, from technique to extra rhythm. If you just want to drill counting and rhythms, that's there. Scales, additional tunes and songs. That's what I had just mentioned. And then your theory and history. Again, great subplans. Just pass it out, not based on technology. They can just hand it out and go. There's some wonderful composition and improvisation exercises that you can take them through, and duets. A lot of the songs in the book have duet parts, so it's right on the free pages. And then assessment pages and finger twisters, which are almost like etudes to really get that dexterity going. So all of the enrichment pages, if you look at the bottom, there's no new concepts. It's all reinforcing things that are in the book, so that you can make the pacing what you need it to be as you're teaching. This is an example of some of the other styles that are included. So if you're like, oh, we really need them, we want to play something poppy, hop on, and there's pop examples that go right along with your book. All right. Here's an example of an enrichment page that would be linked with number 82 in the book, Reuben and Rachel, a common tune that we have all taught. But if you need more tunes at that level, there's 8 more for you. So you can see it's a huge library of resources that are just provided for you. And again, I just have it printed and have a classroom set, and then it's accessible for everybody and easy. I don't have to recreate it all the time. All right. And same thing for technique. You can see this is just an extension of technique in the book, but with more repetition as you're working with your students. And then rhythms, a great way to reinforce rhythms, just have a rhythm page. You can reinforce that a little more, in a more involved way. You could pluck it, you can bow it, you can clap it, all the things to really break down and help them focus in on accurate rhythm reading. And then there's an example of the sound history and the composition and improvisation. So you'll see on this example, there's, if you look halfway down, there's Ellie's Dance. So that is a song in the book. And here you're going to see where there's some composition and improvisation exercises related to it. So you can do more with it, do an extension of that song. Ellie's Dance is actually written for my daughter, Ellie, and she was a dancer, and my dad is one of the authors on the book, Bob Phillips, and there are grandchildren names throughout the book. So Xander's Reel is my nephew, and he is a high school clarinet player now and going to be a band director. So there's some little Easter eggs throughout there that now you know about. Okay. Enrichment pages, here's a few more. These are great assessment tools. So we all know we need to be assessing. And sometimes if you're teaching in a large group situation like me, you need to do that quickly and efficiently. And this, again, just provides that for you. And then performance assessment, if you want them to say, okay, you're going to take this home and you're going to learn this on your own, but you want to make sure there's no new skills in it, they know everything they need to know for it, these are great enrichment pages you'll want to make sure you have. And then scales, these are take the scales that are found throughout the book, but do more with it. So you can see it's in 3/4, it has the arpeggio with it, things that don't fit into a method book all the time is provided for you, so you don't have to create anything. And here's the twisters I was talking about that are very much like etudes. Great. The kids have fun with those. I always use those for competitions, and we see which class can play it the fastest with a drum beat. And all of a sudden they're hooked and they want to win, and they have fun working on etudes. Here's an example of the duets. You can see Sweetly Sings the Donkey. That's a song in the book. And this is the duet part that goes with it. So you can quickly differentiate. I say, we're all learning this song. Who wants a challenge part for it? And let them try the duet part. And they can just learn it right on their own in class as everyone else is having more repetitions with the tune. Oh, my clicker's not working. There we go. And this is an example of a practice record. Again, just something if you want to have it ready to go, it's ready for you. Okay, the best news is all of these book 1 enrichments and the whole book 1 is on Make Music Cloud. If you have not explored Make Music Cloud, it's an amazing resource. I use it with my students. It's a great way for them to practice at home and hear the notes and be able to follow along. And you don't have to have an account, a paid account with Make Music Cloud to use it. You can use all of book 1 by just creating a free account, and you have access to it in Make Music Cloud. So I highly recommend you check that out. Again, a free resource for you, and there's some great new extras in Make Music Cloud. You can play some of the basic exercises in the book, but there's soundtracks from all the big movies for DC superheroes and TV shows and different things like that. So you can see some examples here. Batman, Superman. The kids love these. They're so fun. It makes the book exercises really exciting. That is with the subscription for that one. And then here's another example, the Sound Innovations Extras. It takes the simple tune, Boil Them Cabbage Down, but you play it with the Batman theme. So it's really fun. Okay. So now we're gonna move on. That covers a lot of the SI Sound Innovations online resources, and I want to dive into some of the other books so that you get a quick overview of those. So sound differentiation, I'm a co-author on this with my dad and with my sister, and these are things that we've used for years. She's taught in 5 different districts across the country because she followed her husband's career, and I use them in all the schools I've taught at, and my dad has for a long time. So again, these are tunes that we all use with beginners every day, every year, but there's all the resources you need to make it a concert or make it differentiated provided for you. So if you notice, all of the tunes are on the DNA string. So it's very, very focused on the first year of playing. The only exception to that is, of course, the G for the basses. Bass lines are for all the instruments, so they're all learning to play the chord changes. They can all start to hear the chord changes. And that's a really easy, it's all open strings and the notes are labeled. So every student can access that and have a successful experience on the bass lines and then on the tune. And then some students might be able to do the variations and harmonies. Every tune can be played arco or pit, so whatever way you start, that is totally fine. The students can all play unison, or you can divide it in parts, or you can do some of both, and I'll give you an example of that in just a minute. The chord symbols are also included, so if you have parents or siblings that play ukulele or guitar or piano, they can easily play along. So you're going to see here, this is Au Clair de la Lune, and this one, the only 2 songs in the book that have the note names written in are the first 2. So you're going to see that in this example, and that's to make that very accessible right at the beginning as we're teaching by rote. Later on, that disappears, except for the bass line. It is always in each change on the bass line, so that we try to differentiate as much as possible. So that gives an access point for every student. So you're going to see every student plays the tune. So we can just all play the tune together and we have a song. We could repeat it. We could have the cellos and basses play the tune while the violins and violas play the bass line. And then we could switch. All of a sudden we have 2 times through the tune. We could do that, and then we could play the tune, and maybe we say, hey, who could learn the harmony, and let a few advanced kids add the harmony in, and all of a sudden we have 3 times through the tune. And then same with the variation. I have some songs where I have every student play the variation, and some songs where I just have certain students that I have learned the variation. The variations are most commonly throughout this book rhythmic variations, so that they can easily be learned on their own. So you can see there's a lot of ways to use this to differentiate it and to have it be your concert songs. Later in the book, there's 3 groups that are suggested arrangements. This example from the beginning of the book has 2 groups. So you can see maybe it's the violins and violas. They might play the tune, then the harmony, then the bass line, then the variation. And then the cellos and basses have their own version. Or you can make up your own order. Or group 1 and 2, if you look at that, group 1 is going to be the more advanced group. Group 2, you can see they're mostly playing the bass line and the tune, and that is that way throughout the book. So that's already differentiated for you. If you like to have it written out, you're going to assign students your group 1, your group 2, and that's their order. Okay, and then you have a concert. All right, so that all goes with book 1. Your first year of playing is what that is geared towards, sound differentiation. All right, book 2. This is the next core book for the series. Sound differentiation is obviously a supplemental book to go along with book 1. So these, again, I will go faster through because you've got an idea of what the series is based on. Book 2, the thing I love about this for book 2 is that it is in each each topic is independent, so you can do the book in any order you want. So if you're like, okay, we got to learn this key for this piece we're doing for the fall concert, you can jump right to it. The first couple pages are review, so that is sequential, but after that it is by topic, so keys, rhythms. So you don't introduce a new key and new rhythms at the same time. You're either doing new keys or new rhythms or new technique, bow placement, and I'll show you a few examples of that. Again, this is Sound Innovations is probably the most comprehensive series for teaching bow technique and bow performance, and having it written in the book is really important. I think kids see that, like, oh, this is important where I put my bow to get a good sound, because getting a good sound is again the essence of what we do, and affects everything, affects intonation and everything we do as musicians. So you'll see the online portion of book 2 is more instrument family specific, so violins and violas and cellos and basses, the DVDs. But all of the accompaniments are similar to book 1 and recorded by professional musicians. And these are the topics covered in book 2. You're going to see the sharp keys, flat keys like you would want in a book 2, and then the tone. There's your bow placement and your bow weight and your bow speed. That's what's covered throughout the entire series, and it's just always increasing the level of expertise that we're using to do that. And then separated bow strokes. A lot of teaching, we have to kind of figure that on our own. This is all provided for you. How to get a good staccato, martelé, spiccato. I love the spiccato because there's a visual representation of what that stroke looks like. And then, of course, sight reading and duple and triplet, harmonics. There is a little introduction to shifting in book 2. And then, of course, book 3 has the in-depth shifting. Introduction to vibrato, the major and minor scales and arpeggios, and repertoire that includes both of those. So once you get to the repertoire section, again, it's by level, so you're kind of leveling up to that, but each level in book 2 can be done interchangeably. And then you're mixing like sharp keys and double meter and combining some of those things. And there are some really nice duets and trios that can be used as well. Okay, I'm going to skip through this just for time. And again, I cannot stress enough, SI Online is amazing. You can go right to book 2 and print out your enrichment pages. So as you're working on your pacing and figuring out, oh, I need more of this, they don't quite have this key, that's provided for you. You don't have to go looking, you don't have to create it. It's all right there. A great way to, again, provide differentiated instruction and assessment as well. So you can see the other enrichment categories are very similar to book 1, and you can use those to adjust the pace of the book to fit your specific teaching situation. All right, so I want to move on to the intermediate string orchestra book. And again, this intermediate is the green book, and that is really a book 3. And then the purple is the advanced, Sound Innovations Advanced, and that is book 4. So they're labeled to be useful for any grade level that you need them for. The intermediate book is really taking the next level of technique that you would expect in a book 3, with a lot of focus on tone development and attack strokes and really teaching that. And then shifting, I'll show you an example of the shifting where it takes every instrument at the same time through shifting. So this is the helpful thing for what we do, right? We need to be able to teach the shifting and the scales and all of that at once with the entire ensemble, and that's what this book allows you to do. And then there's chorales and rhythms, and you can also use it in a private studio. It takes you through all the major technique that you need, but it is of course meant to be very helpful for teaching mixed groups in the school setting as well. So you can see the levels. Again, you can do these in any order, so you can go back and forth. Level 1 is sound tone. That's really diving into taking an exercise in the book and practicing it in the mezzo forte lane, play it in the piano lane, change lanes. Same thing with weight and speed and bow division. Are you in the upper half, lower half? This level 1 will save you so much rehearsal time. Especially in the upper middle school and high school levels. We spend so much rehearsal time dedicated to trying to get them to play forte. If they're used to these techniques, it's so much faster. And then you can see the sound bowing really dives into martelé and collé and chop and different things like that. I have found exposing students to those improves their technique so much. If we're working on colle and spiccato, even if they don't perform it in a piece yet, learning it helps relax that bow hold. So all of that is provided, and then the shifting, it's all based on finger patterns. So every shift, they can just think about the pattern they're using instead of getting confused. And it's based on transport and guide notes like you would expect, and very clearly marked fingerings for all of those. There's also vibrato and a fingering chart and all that. So I do want to show you a few examples, but the shifting is really, like I said, is presented in unison. So every instrument is learning at the same time. So while the violins and violas are learning third position, the cellos are learning, of course, third and fourth. And then bass is third, fourth, and fifth. Now the thing that makes that work is that basses have already been shifting in third position, right? Hopefully from right from the beginning. So they're not, even though they're adding fifth position in, they already know third. That's already, so they're only learning one or two new things at a time. And like I said, the book is flexible and has complimentary videos and accompaniments on SIA online for you. Okay. This is an example of the videos. So it goes each with high level teachers. Kirk Moss, if you've worked with him, you know he's a gem and is an expert at teaching some of these things. And Bob Phillips, so you can see those videos are right there with them. It's great reminders for us as teachers as well. A free clinic right there. All right. So this is an example of sound tone right at level 1. This is kind of review from book 2. So really basic bowing lanes. You can see this is the intermediate book 3. So we have 5 lanes now, getting a little more in depth on the bowing lanes. And they're going to actually practice easy notes, just a basic D scale, but let's play it in the mezzo forte lane. Now let's play the arpeggio, but let's play it in the forte lane. If they can do that, you're going to save so much rehearsal time and repertoire. And then it, of course, gets more advanced as the book goes. You can see here medium fast bow speed. And you can see this is built in with the slurs. So they're playing the same exercise 3 times, but first it's separate. Second, medium slow bow speed is slurring 2. And then they're really going to slow the bow down, and they have to slow it down because they have to get all 4 notes in. So it's built into the exercise, training that bow speed. And then spiccato, this is an example of where they've already learned the spiccato and it's in repertoire. So for example, Farandel, we all know that one. Easy access to quickly learning into repertoire so they can see the purpose of learning it. Students want to know why they're learning something. So if we're just drilling open strings on spiccato, it gets a little old. So seeing where it transfers into repertoire is really helpful. All right, here's the shifting. I love this because you can see this is the score page, and you can see how it's based on patterns at the top. So pattern 1 is obviously as shown, high 2, 3, and then it's all laid out by position. So if you look at the violin part, open 1, 2, 3, and then there's the transport and note where they're moving up to position and is marked in, and the half steps are marked as well. And the position stays the finger pattern stays the same. So 1, high 2, close 3, and then what note is that, right? That's where the confusion always happens. What is it called? But they're getting used to that finger pattern. So my finger pattern is the same in first position as when I shift. And then you can see the violas are the same, of course, and then cellos, they're also moving into 4th position. The cello shifting is obviously, it's a larger shift, right? Larger shifts are more accessible than small shifts. So that is an easier shift for them. They can easily do 3rd and 4th together. And then, of course, the basses have already been shifting in 3rd and can easily add 4th and 5th. And you notice these are all done on half notes. So the tempo, the slow tempo is built in, so they have time to move and think about where they're going. And then this is level 4, the scales and arpeggios. This is meant to be used in the classroom where you can do different instruments on different octaves. So maybe if you look at example 155, you have the cellos play the lower octave, have the violins play the top octave so they can tune to the low strings. You could use that interchangeably however you want, especially if you have one section that's really just cruising, get them shifting, get them playing the top octave, leave everyone else on what they're comfortable with. A great way to differentiate even within the ensemble. And then we're going to move into the Advanced String Orchestra book, Sound Development, which is, like I said, a book 4. And you're going to see in this more examples of how the tone and bow technique is carried through even book 4. And that's really nice to have in there, because a lot of us are, no matter how good we are at our secondary instruments, we're obviously not as comfortable on as our main instrument. And when we get to this level, it's nice to have that included for all the instruments. And there's 3 octave scales and shifting, and the 3 octaves are really important. To have it set up like it is in book 1. You can see right here we have the A, B, and C. So you can say, okay, we're all going to play A, we're all going to play B. And then when you get to octave 3, you can easily start. You don't have to say, find this note when you're in the third. You need to drill the 3rd octave, right? So just say start at exercise C, and they're all starting in the right spot to really drill the 3rd octave, which has moved, as you can see, to half notes for the learning part. We want them to slow it down and find those notes, right? Um, and then you can see later in the book, it's all 3 octaves are combined. So if they're auditioning for all states and things like that, it's easily all in one spot, and they don't have to think about where they're going. Okay, here's an example of that where this incorporates different slur patterns and the turn you can see at the bottom of 106. These are the 2 main ways that every All-State in the country requires scales for All-State. So that's why they're in this book, except the only exception to that is the basses. There's no All-State that requires the 3 octave scales for the basses, so that is not included, but all the other instruments have those 3 octaves. And you can see the slurring patterns. Those are the most common ones for the most states across the country. All right, this is an example of introducing the shifting in a little different way. So we're all on the A string, so A, and you can see it's built into the rhythm, and the shifts are built in there as part of this exercise, and just putting a simple scale but all on one string, and all of a sudden we have a great exercise for teaching that. All right, Sound Innovations Creative Warm-Ups. So we did kind of book 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the supplemental sound differentiation that goes along with book 1. This is that 2.5-ish book that I was talking about. And this is really a lot of the things that you would love to have in your method book, but we can't print a 50-page method book, right? No one's going to be able to negotiate that. So this is your book 2.5. You can use it with late middle school or high school. It is very flexible, because it really dives into working on some of these things that we would do in a class, but it's written out. So you can see this example. This is one of the intonation examples. You can see the B part is obviously the drone, and we're doing interval training so they can start to hear those intervals. A lot of us do this as we're teaching or rehearsing repertoire, but to have it right in there, and something where you're methodically taking them through that is a great warm
Listen
up.
to
There are DVDs that go right along with that for students. They can use those and as they're practicing. I also want to show the extended hand position. Again, this is really helpful for that 2.5 level where they really need some work on that, right? And so this takes them through. You can see the cello and bass example where they're getting that extension. Again, the very clear line drawings are in every level, and you can see what that actually looks like. And there are instructions for that on practicing it, because that's a more advanced skill. And then here you can see some examples of more like your etudes to really learn those on all of the strings. And you're going to see on the left side, again, a demonstration of each of those so that it's right next to the diagram, to the notes. They can play it and they can see what they're supposed to do. And you're going to notice on the left side as well, there's a sound audio button, and that is, all of these are in SI Online, so they can play along with it. All right, then we have level 2. This is your rhythm unit, where it really dives in more extensively to rhythm training. And you can use any system you want. You can use Gordon. You can use counting. It's all given in the example. There's a few main ones that are in those examples. And then you'll see the counting subdivision in there as well for some of the beginning exercises. And then it takes you through several different meters and things that you would want to be teaching them in 2/4 and 3/4 and 4/4 and those dotted rhythms and all that stuff, good stuff. All right, level 3 in this book is based on bow fluency, and this is really where we dive into what part of the bow are you playing in and with how much weight. And this is just a quick practice. So look at 123. So we're learning to play in the middle of the bow. So we're going to start it. We're going to start at the 1/3 point, and we're going to move to the 2/3 point, and then we're going to go back to 1/3, 2/3, 1/3, 2/3. So it's training them to think parts of the bow. And then you'll see in 124 they start at the frog and they go halfway, go back to the frog, third, and then to the 3rd point. And then also with the tip. So at 125, they're starting at the 2/3 mark, go to the tip, back to 2/3, go to the tip, back to 2/3. Great exercises. If they can play in these 3 parts of the bow, that's going to be gold for middle school repertoire, right? We really wanted to develop that artistic playing from the beginning. Okay, bow fluency. This is another example of using the whole bow. You can see it's divided rhythmically. Like if you jump down to 128, those are whole notes. So they're going from the frog to the tip, frog to the tip, getting that whole bow going. And then, level 4 is to do some really, really creative warm-ups. And I love this because this includes improvisation in the classical genre as well. So a lot of times we jump into some jazz or fiddle or different pop, different things, which is great, and some of that is in here as well. But there's also a classical example, and it provides you as the teacher. You don't have to know how to improv. There are melodic and rhythmic riffs provided. So just have them try all the different riffs, and then just have them pick a couple and try it with the chaconne. And then here's the melodic ones. You saw the rhythmic. So this just gives them some ideas, and use some ideas gets them comfortable trying different things, and then they can piece it together. And then there are several different styles in the creative warm-up books for that level 4 of doing improvisation and a little bit of composition. So a great way to just introduce them to it. All right, I want to talk about sound orchestra. We're almost through. We have just a couple more things. The sound orchestra ensemble development is a really powerful tool. This is one of our newest resources, and this is why I love the Sound Innovation series. It is the most comprehensive series on the market. Just everything you can need is there. And once they get used to doing the bow technique, they see it in every book, and they're just go through it so quickly. The ensemble development has wonderful authors that worked on this. This was Bob Phillips, Peter Boonshaft, Chris Bernitas, Jim Palmer, and David Pope. So people that have taught full orchestras at a high level in all different situations. This is really to train them to play as an ensemble. So you're going to find your chorales. You're going to find examples of excerpts from professional literature that you might want to expose them to. Maybe you're not going to play a whole movement from a symphony with your full orchestra, but you really want them to experience playing some of the major excerpts. It's in here for you. And then you can just a reminder, you can use this just with strings as well. So you can use it for your full orchestra or just strings. It works either way. There is also a saxophone included, so no matter what your situation is, you have everything you need, and the scores are provided either way. So you can have a full orchestra score, or if you're just using it with string orchestra, you can just have the string orchestra score. All right, I'll show you. This is all in Make Music Cloud. All of the method books are in Make Music Cloud. There are also additional exercises, even with this book, that you can use. There's Bach chorales, original chorales. A lot of the authors wrote some really, really beautiful chorales that are included. There's also new keys. So you're going to see the keys in the book. If you're like, oh, I really need a chorale in this key because we're playing this piece, it's available online. You just print it out. It's all free. It's all part of your resource. I'm sorry, those are in Make Music Cloud. And then the repertoire we talked about. Okay, so these are all the different exercises types that are included in this book. It includes so much. There's tuning, passing the tonic, scales, arpeggios, phrasing, articulations, so many things, dynamics, shifting, chord qualities between sections. So I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like. Oops, I actually don't have that in here. Okay, never mind. I'm going to go back to that. There we go. Dynamics. So you're going to see when you open up this book, There's, the balance, working on the balance and ensemble. Those exercises are built right into this book for you. So, this is a great resource for any teaching situation, but especially if you're teaching full orchestra or string orchestra, you really want to work on some more of these things. So, um, wow, thank you so much for tuning in. That was a lot of information. I know I talked fast. I tried to include a lot of things for you. Definitely, you want to get your hands on each level of the book. When you have that whole series, and you open them up, you'll see everything we talked about, and a really sequential, well thought out pedagogy. So. Yeah, I would just love to encourage you to reach out with questions if you have questions. And the Alfred team is amazing and they know so much about these resources. And they're such a great team of authors. We can't wait for you to try out these resources. We love talking to you at clinics and booths and all those things. So come find us, come pick our brains. We have lived and breathed these resources, and a lot of us are using them every day with our own students. So thank you for what you do as teachers. Thank you for, diving into these resources. That's a credit to you and your students. Are in good hands if you're diving into this and checking out new resources. So thanks for all you do, and I look forward to talking to you or meeting you somewhere as we go. So thanks so much.